everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another Falconry video. Appreciate your patience with me. I'm still recovering from having heart surgery. Heart unexpectedly failed on me, and so I'm at different locations than normal. Sometimes my words aren't perfect, but I'm trying to get back in the full swing of things, doing videos every week. So appreciate your patience if I forget a word here and there, but we're going to get back to up and running. So today's video, I want to talk about working with raptors and some of the different ways that we can work with them. Falconry is, I jokingly say, it's the gateway drug to working with raptors, because people have heard of falconry. Falconry has a long, rich history of working directly with raptors, and I'll get to what that means in a second, but let's go back and do a little bit of history really quick. Falconry came about as a way to get food. Today, we don't worry so much about that. Most of us in the world do not hunt for our food. If we do hunt, it's a leisure activity, and even if you're eating what you get, oh, there's Yappa. Hey, Yappa. He's coming over to say hi. Even if you eating what you get, it's still not your main way of getting food. For most people in the world today, we have agriculture, we have grocery stores, we have all kinds of ways we can get food. And so because of that, a lot of us don't think of that as how falconry came about. Falconry did come about as a way to get food. It predates guns, it even predates archery, and in many parts of the world it predates agriculture. It's that old. Now, we believe how it came about likely is people used to scare things off of a kill. You see, there are tribes that do this today in parts of the world, and there are animals that do this to other animals, where if you have a smaller predator catch something and a bigger predator spooks it off, steals its kill. It's the same thing. We started to do that. That is how falconry is believed to come about. That we as humans, we would see maybe a falcon flying around and it caught something and it was on a kill, and we went and we chased it off the kill, because falcons will catch prey much larger than themselves, heavier than themselves, heavy enough that they cannot fly off with it. So they're trying to fly off with what they caught. As you spook them, then they eventually let go and you take what they catch. Now this eventually, we believe, became the idea of like, well, wait a minute, what if I got one of those birds and trained it to actually hunt for me so that I could do this every day and we share the kill? Mutually advantageous. We both have a guaranteed meal, and it works. That's kind of how we believe falconry came about, is something along those lines. Over time, falconry developed all over the world, and most parts of the world that have a long, rich history of falconry, that history is rooted deeply in the culture. So parts of the world, it's very much identified with cultural status as cultures developed and changed and shifted. You might have sort of ranks in society where, if you're this high-ranking individual in the social status, you will keep this kind of bird. And over time, falconry became as much a status symbol and a symbol of honoring your culture as it did a way to get food. Now, eventually, guns came about, agriculture came about, and the need for falconry as a hunting sport to get dinner became not a necessity, but an activity that could be, again, just something to celebrate your own culture, to celebrate tradition, to celebrate equipment, to celebrate social status. And the food part was just a nice thing. It's like, your bird catches something, great, you eat it, but that's not why you're doing it, because now you have agriculture. So when that change happened, falconry started to wane in many parts of the world, and again, the novelty of it in the modern age has really shown. Most people having birds, without any permits or anything, just in regular society, and you going through a neighborhood, you're going through town, and people just having birds, walking around with them, was normal. Now it's strange. In most parts of the world, if you see somebody with a bird of prey, you're like, oh, what's going on? They've got a hawk. What's the deal? What's the point of that? Why do they have this bird? And that's a change that's happened. We didn't live through all of that individually, and so we just accept that this is novel and strange to work with birds, when really humanity has thousands and thousands of years of history working with raptors of all types. So what am I getting at with all this? Well, raptors, birds of prey, are special. They're unique. They can work with us, they can hunt for us, but that's not the only way we work with them. Now, in today's world where we are not reliant on them to catch our dinner for us, we are still drawn to them. They inspire us. You look back anciently, we worshipped raptors as our deity figures or messengers of the gods from, oh, you're going to bring, you're a messenger for Zeus or the Egyptian god Horus. There are images all throughout time, and part of it's just because they can fly and they're predators. They're good at what they do. We're inspired by any predatory animal, bears and wolves and lions and things like that, cougars. We're inspired by predatory animals that have amazing attributes: speed, strength, stamina, killing power. We respect and admire those traits, but still, we used raptors as our deity figures forever. We put them on top of our flagpoles and our flags even today. It just seems fitting. We don't put a bear on top of a flagpole when bears are powerful creatures. We put an eagle, and it seems to make sense to us. So we still have this genetic respect for raptors, for birds of prey. We do, of all kinds. They inspire us. They teach us. They're powerful symbols. So we like them. We like to work with them. We like to be around them. We like to see them. If you see a robin or a magpie or, a raven, it's like, okay. But if you see a hawk and you're not a bird person, you're like, wow, we saw a hawk today. We saw a red-tailed hawk. Ooh. And it's a big thing. It's like, yeah, it was cool. People always tell me their stories of seeing that. People don't tell me their stories of seeing a magpie. And magpies are incredibly intelligent, smart, beautiful creatures. But it's something about the raptors that we love. And so what I'm bringing up is, if you are looking into falconry has a thousands of year old history that's evolved and adapted and developed, fine-tuned. We have techniques that work to keep the bird healthy and happy, and to keep the human healthy and happy, so nobody's getting harmed, and the bird's flying free, it's exercising, it's hunting, it's coming back, and it works. And we're still developing these techniques. However, this is not the only way to work with raptors. So my point is, if you like owls, if you like hawks, if you like falcons, you like eagles, you think they're really neat, and you'd like to work with one, if you start looking it up online, maybe you found this channel and you're like, oh, falconry, cool, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. But it might not be for you. Now, I'm not trying to discourage you from practicing falconry. I'm encouraging you to look at the whole range of ways that you can work with a raptor. Now, falconry is the oldest and the oldest field sport of humanity. It really works well, but there are other ways. For example, you could work in wildlife rehab. Now, wildlife rehabilitators work their tails off, and unless they do education as well, they're just behind the scenes, trying to help birds and release them into the wild. They're not getting a lot of the hands-on of, like, I'm holding a bird that's trained and works with me. They're doing more medical work and then working to get a bird released back into the wild. It's very rewarding. It's a lot of work. But it's also something that does not have the you don't have to get, like, am I training this bird? Am I making these steps along the way to get them to fly to my fish, to eat from the fish? You don't have that stress. So you have all kinds of other stresses, but it's like, we're just trying to get this bird healthy and back to the wild, okay? That is a way to have a lot of new experiences with raptors, is working as a wildlife rehabilitator. A wildlife educator is another thing. There are birds, sometimes they're captive bred, but sometimes they're injured birds that cannot be released to the wild, that need a permanent home. And in the United States, we have permits you can get for that to be a wildlife educator, where you are working with a bird and you're training it, and you're doing educational programs with it. You're helping teach people about raptors, about conservation, and you are getting to work with the bird. You're not doing falconry. You're using some falconry techniques and some falconry equipment, but you don't have as much stress of, like, flying your bird free and fully training it like that. You don't have that going on. So, but you're still getting to go teach and share and work with the raptor directly. That is a great way to do things, is doing wildlife education. Also, there's a lot of opportunities where most people do not have the time to go out and fly a bird every day. It's like, that's hard. And so maybe there's a lot of opportunities where there are zoos and aviaries and wildlife sanctuaries that you could volunteer for or work for, work your way up the ranks. And the nice thing about that is you are not funding the food to feed your bird, you are not paying for the housing, and you are getting to go out and still work with the bird, but other people are helping you out. You don't have to do it every single day. Maybe you work 4 or 5 days a week and somebody else does the rest, and you work together. And that is a way that is very rewarding, that you can work with birds. Sorry, I've got a magpie on top of the roof there that's pecking, so if you hear that tap tap tap, there's a wild magpie doing that. Anyways, ADD moment there. But my point is, there are a lot of opportunities to work with things. You could also be just a bird bander. There are people who get permits to trap wild birds of prey included, and just band them. They're migrating through, they put a band on, and that can help keep track of wildlife numbers and what's flying through certain areas, migration routes, and you're getting a momentary, 1 to 5 minute hands-on experience with a bird of prey that then you set free. So you're not worrying about feeding even. You're just like, I'm holding it for a second, I'm taking photos, measurements, taking the data, and setting it free. That is another way to work with raptors that gets that dopamine hit of like, wow, I'm learning about them, I'm looking at them, I'm seeing them in the field, I'm getting to hold them, and then I'm releasing them into the wild. The fact of the matter is, none of us need to work with raptors at all. None of us do. We don't have to survive. Okay, so let's be honest, we are working with raptors because we want to, because we like to. And I know that sometimes people will like to put on the trappings that they are the savior of raptors, and every other group that works with raptors is evil. I've seen all of it. I've seen falconers, I've seen rehabbers, I've seen wildlife educators, I've seen bird banders, I've seen all of them. All of them, I have seen individuals vilify all the other groups and claim that they are the savior. I'm doing something noble and great, and all the rest of you are evil and terrible, and you're the dredge of society. Don't be that way. Let's be honest, we all love the birds. We all are working them because we want to, not because we have to, not because the birds need you. Now, conservation efforts are important. And a lot of these things are very helpful. It is helpful to teach and learn and share and do these things. It is. That's great. But let's be honest. Life would go on if all humanity stopped working with raptors in any hands-on way. Life would go on. Life finds a way. So let's be honest. We're all working with these birds in these different ways because we love them, because we want to connect with nature in a deeper way than just, with binoculars, seeing them in the wild. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either. If that, I won't mention his name because I didn't ask permission, but there's a not a falconer, there's a birder in Utah, master birder, and his passion is ferruginous hawks. And he photographs and films them. He's got these, gigantic telephoto lenses. And I bump into him all the time, just out in the deserts and in the mountains. And it's his love. And one time I had a falcon with me, a peregrine falcon, and trained him. I'm like, hey, you want to hold it? And he's like, no, that's okay. And most people would jump at that chance, and for him, he liked the idea of them out there and that he was reaching towards them, but he didn't want to have that tactile connection. And I respected that. I'm like, okay, hey, cool. That works. Everybody wants to experience nature or the wild in a different way, and that is okay. So let us please not vilify other people who have found a different way to do it. And let's all be honest with ourselves and remember that maybe the way we got into it is not the best way for us. Maybe we got into falconry and we'd be better suited as an educator. Maybe we got into education first by meeting an educator and we'd do way better being a rehabber. Or maybe we should just be a birder that goes, learns everything about them and gives lectures and photographs them in the wild and shares that. I've seen people, and they are happiest when they line up with the version of raptor interaction that suits them best. So be open to that. Be open to even the version you got into might not be the best. Or be open to every version, every way that you might interact with wildlife. So I just wanted to share this. I thought it would be kind of a good subject. I've kind of addressed it in the past years ago. I'm going through my videos and trying to remember which ones I have and haven't done videos on because, again, traumatic brain injury, heart failure, recovering. So, but hopefully these videos will still be something that's valuable to everybody. And again, cut everybody some slack. Find the version of working with raptors that works best for your situation. And that might change throughout your life. That's okay. And let's be kind to each other. Let's be respectful and understand we're all humans. We're all these social simians, and you might feel special because at your place of work, you're the only one who works with raptors. And then you go somewhere where you see somebody who works with raptors in another capacity, and you feel a sense of, hey, this is my territory. Don't do that. We all love the animals. Let's bond over that. We all love raptors. That's why you're watching this channel, probably. It's because you like birds of prey, you like raptors. Let's share that love and build off of that and work together as fellow lovers of raptors, instead of having these bitter, like, well, you're wrong because you work with them this way and I do it that way. Doesn't matter. Let's build together on that commonality and work together to help the birds in the wild and to teach and to share the way we love them. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll keep these coming. I'm still trying to do a video every Monday. So let me know your questions, your comments down below. Again, right now, I'm having a hard time reading correctly. I can read, but it takes effort. And so I appreciate your patience with me getting back on comments, but I will get to them eventually. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you will keep watching this channel. And as always, happy hawking.